What is the American dream? Is it a Corvette? Is it a job? Job you love, long term? Is it being in a country that is reliable? It was a very modern country back in the 1930s called Germany. They were in a war back in 1918. They lost. When they lost that war, they also lost the value of their currency. The German mark, there's a picture of a child, 8 years old, a boy and a girl, each one holding a stack of what is called German marks, stacked as tall as they were, about 4.5 feet. And they're holding up, each of them, a dollar bill. Those stacks, each of those stacks of hundreds of marks were worth one of these. Dollar was king. Though the people were living, literally, all white people, all Germanic people, virtually out of garbage cans. And to make a further illustration, they would go to a store. Turns out I had relatives who owned it, but it's called a delicatessen. And they would bring in a bushel basket of money or a bushel basket of food. And the entire works week would go for that big basket. And the money would be handed over by the gobs, whatever the amount was that was earned in that week, to keep surviving, to keep from starving. And they lived in garbage cans when they weren't finding food otherwise, or didn't work enough to pay for food. So the difficulty is when currency becomes questionable. Right now we have roughly four trillions of dollars that we're putting out for people to keep them alive. It's called bridging people every month or so by paying for rent, for unemployment. All that's happening right now because of the coronavirus and because poor people always were on the edge. Their jobs went first. They lost their jobs first. Maybe they got the thing called the stimulus check. Maybe they didn't. They're in a very precarious time. So we are in this uncertain time. Is this dollar going to maintain its value? So if you are 20 years old, 30 years old, and you've always wanted a beautiful car, like a Corvette. Now there's a certain Corvette that's more beautiful than others. It's out there now. And there was an interruption in the production of it. So here we are wanting something beautiful. When this economic situation continues or doesn't continue, will we still be able to get what we want? The American dream, the American Corvette. The American car has always been that. In 1935, there's a little background in history, this country was in a major depression. We're moving into one of those right now. It could be caused by the virus or economic problems, all the above. So what did the president at the time do? Named FDR. He installed a tax on the upper rich of 75%, as marginal tax rate. Anybody making $200,000 and up paid what's called a graduated or marginal tax rate, all the way up to 75% of their total income. That tax in 1935 went to 91% in 1941 when World War II began, which then paid for World War II. And everybody went to work. Women went to work, children were working in parks, building parks. All these things were done to keep people in food, in bread, in housing, in warmth, in shelter. And that kind of tax paid for a lot of things. It paid for the war of World War II. In fact, in 1941, it went from 1941 to 1942 up to 92%. Stayed at night, went back to 91%, and stayed that way all the way through the rest of the war and the beginning and the GI Bill and the beginning of Vietnam and all of that, and Korea, the ending of Korea. All those wars were ended on this high tax. All the way through the interstate highway system that was built on that high tax. So we paid for the war, we paid for the GI Bill. The Marshall Plan was helped to bring back our creditors from Europe. This is a bit of history, folks, but this happened in a period of 45 years. These high taxes were in place up until 1980. They went from 91% in 1960 under Eisenhower, the president at the time, Republican president, and they stayed that way through as he built the interstate highway system. And then they dropped to 70% under Kennedy, under Johnson, under Nixon, and under Ford, and under Carter. When Carter left office, the country had no debt. Here you got $20 was still good. We got $10 is good, $5 is good, and $1 is better. And today, we've gone from 1980 to the present, from no debt in 1980, under bad Jimmy Carter, some people say, to $3 trillion at the end of Ronald Reagan's presidency, to $5 trillion under George Bush's presidency, which would have been in 1990, to $4 trillion under Clinton's administration. And then George Bush Jr. came in and he jacked the debt up to $12 trillion from Clinton in 8 years. So when the guy came in after that, a guy called Obama, the debt continued. The debt was because you had all these unemployed people not paying into the Treasury to the tune of $600 billion per month. There was continued debt. So when Obama left office after 8 years, the debt had gone to 18 trillion. Now that's the debt path. It started with Reagan, continued with all these presidents, but before that, remember, for 45 years, we built the interstate highway system, the rural electrification of America. All these things, dams, rivers, and bridges, were built on a high tax. So Corvettes became a very big car in the 50s. The interstate highway system was waiting for that Corvette. That Corvette was a lovely car, especially the first ones. I knew so many people that had one. Those Corvettes cost maybe, let me think, $7,000 back in the 50s. Today, I understand the latest Corvette a friend of mine wants to buy really badly. It runs 60,000, maybe 100,000, like the Tesla, which runs 200,000. That's the American dream, to be able to buy that car. But if this dollar isn't good because of all the debt, that becomes a big question mark. If you're eating bread and meat and so forth is put to the side, are you going to have a car to buy or not? That's a big, large question. So here we are today, staring at this massive debt, and under George Bush Trump, we have a debt of, what is it now? 23 trillion, and moving upward in the space of less than 4 years. So we have seen a president who could manage a country in terms of debt, and now we've seen one who cannot in terms of debt. Not all his fault, but nonetheless, he's inherited his own situation by being in the presidency. So I thank you for that, folks, and happy trails, happy Corvette days, and just think and dream about that Corvette, because I have a good friend who definitely dreams in terms of Corvettes. See you later. Thank you very much.